Welcome back to Bleav in Softball. I'm your host, Jenna, and we said welcome to Mayhem last week, but now it's just even more official. This episode is coming out on Thursday, May 11th, and it is in the thick of conference tournaments, and I can finally say that the Pac-12 is a part of it. So I am here in Tucson in the hotel for the first ever Pac-12 conference softball tournament. I am super excited about this one. So however you got here today, audio podcast platform like Apple, Spotify, etc., or watching on YouTube, thank you. Subscribe and rate if you haven't yet. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bleav in Softball. That's BLEAV. You can click the link in our bio on either page or go to shop.bleav.com to purchase merch. 3 shirts available for you, covering our bases, safer out, and catch you soon. Some of our favorite segments. All right, let's go through today's batting order. First, we'll be covering our bases, give you some news and callouts from around the softball world. Then we'll head into today's interview with Melyssa Lombardi. She's the Oregon head coach in her 5th season, and I had a chance to talk with her at the end of the regular season before this tournament. So it's going to be super interesting. Then we'll end things with the foul tip of the week, where we share tips to help us get better. All right, let's get started. Covering our bases. BetOnline.ag is your #1 source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BLEAV to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Where the game starts for us today. First, Athletes Unlimited had their college softball draft earlier this week. It feels like it was a longer amount of time ago, just with everything that's happening with the conference tournaments and in college softball specifically. But, here we are. Just want to say, firstly, congrats to last week's guest, Jordan Rudd, Northwestern catcher, for being drafted again. The back-to-back Big Ten champ also made the Big Ten All-Defensive team. Now that she's been drafted by both Women's Pro Fast Pitch, the WPF, and Athletes Unlimited, AU, it's a little bit of a two-sided thing, right? It's a tough decision you have to make because the seasons do overlap. So it would be nice to have, in some ways, a centralized, established league like the NWSL for soccer. But at the same time, it's also pretty cool to have options, and options in the U.S. Where you can play pro softball. So I'm going to support and cover both. We got you here on Bleav in Softball. But also, not only was a mid-major player drafted, but also the first pick announced. So obviously, Athletes Unlimited, it's different than the standard draft because the order doesn't really affect specific teams. There aren't specific teams that already exist. They still have yet to be established. And it'll change every week. So each player is basically their own entity in that way. But to hear Wichita State's Sydney McKinney's name first, when she's been first in the nation in batting average, I do think that represents growth and is a pretty cool thing to have witnessed. Then also, keep in mind, only one outfielder was drafted too, Yanni Acuna from ASU. And initially, my gut reaction was like, wow, the outfield's getting shafted a little bit because potentially versatility being even more important in AU because, you have to find a way to get in the lineup. It changes all the time. But also, I think it's really the main reason is because it's about what's needed. A lot of outfielders are already signed and planning to return to AU. So what they're doing is they're filling the gaps that they need in the league. This is no different than college recruiting, right? It depends on what the programs need. So there is a little bit of luck and just timing that goes into it as well. And I do think this is a good reminder because we all obviously want to work hard to try to improve our luck, but nothing is guaranteed in sports, in life, whatever. So you really just have to let things play out sometimes. And speaking of letting things play out, second is the end of the regular season for college softball. It got us ready for postseason. Let's just say that the Pac-12 had a crazy finish. UCLA was just chilling at the top with a bye weekend. But also the only other set placement in the Pac-12 1 through 9 was number 6, which was Cal. So everything else was down to the last day. Washington, Stanford, Utah, and Oregon all fighting for somewhere between 2 and 5th right? And then Oregon State, Arizona, and ASU trying to fight between 7th and 9th. So it was pretty insane. And the thing is also not only for the final standings, but for the tournament seeds. So it made it a little extra interesting on top of it. Baylor also in the Big 12 finished with a sweep of Texas. Literally brought the brooms out onto the field afterwards. I don't know how I would feel if I was on the receiving end of that. If you're on the active end of that, I feel like, okay, that's probably pretty cool. But remember, this is also the only team to have beat OU in the regular season. OU being shut out also, by the way, at one point this past weekend. Would have been the first time since 2019, but in true Sooner fashion, they ended up scoring 4 runs at the end to get the win. And then, of course, walked away with the sweep. Yes, the Big 12 championship for the regular season wasn't really up for grabs. OU had already sealed the deal, but it's still bedlam. This is still a rivalry and it still means something. So still very interesting. And I think this is why conference tournaments coming right after that is so interesting. We talk all the time about peaking at the right time, playing your best softball when it matters most. This is the start of that before the NCAA tournament. What you did in the regular season doesn't matter anymore. Like, sure, it might have mattered in terms of seedings and placement and things like that, but now it's just anything can happen. We see it in the postseason every single year, the quote-unquote upsets or the surprises. This is why I think that All-Americans shouldn't be named until after the NCAA tournament, to be honest. Obviously, I know there are marketing and media purposes for doing it sooner. You want to know, like, hey, who am I watching, especially for the new fans? What have they done and what can I expect from them? But I like to see how people actually play, when the pressure is at its highest, not how we think they'll play, physically, mentally, emotionally. So I think that matters. The other thing that matters is leadership. And senior day happened across the country the last couple of weeks, is still happening a little bit. And I got to participate in one this past weekend in Palo Alto. So Stanford hosted Washington. I actually called the game on Pac-12 Network. It was a top 10 game that meant a lot for the conference finish and the tournament seeding. Like I said, the conference was really up in the air until the very last second. But also on a personal side, it was the first class who I've actually covered their entire career. The 4th year true seniors, yes, but especially the 5th years. And in this case for Stanford, it's Taylor Gindelsberger, Emily Schultz, and Emily Young. Because when I first came back to call games at Stanford in 2019, after having had a little bit of a break, it was their freshman year. And now they went through COVID and everything else in the meantime, and here they are getting their master's degrees. So it was really special. And I did get to go to the team barbecue after and just see the love from their teammates, their coaches, their families. And I think it was a good reminder, too, of what matters most, and that's largely off the field. I think it's a good reminder right before all the craziness that is mayhem as well, because, I remember my senior day. It happened to be against Washington, too. We did win, by the way, for the record. But it was the last series that we were playing before the NCAA tournament. And at that point, we knew we likely wouldn't be hosting regionals, which my senior year was the only time we didn't, actually. And so we knew that this could be the last time you're truly playing on this field, on our field. And I still remember the last out. I was playing first base and fly ball was hit to left field. One of the freshmen who was playing out there, she caught it. And that's when I knew, like, okay, this part is over. But it was also weird because it's this middle ground but postseason is coming and there's still so much and arguably the biggest things to still tackle. So I feel for all the seniors who are experiencing this, and I'm sending good vibes as they try to finish the job this season. Then to bring it home, my broadcast schedule. So like I said, I'm here at the inaugural Pac-12 softball tournament. You can find the bracket at pac-12.com. You can search for the softball tournament, or you can literally just do /2023-PAC-12-softball-tournament, and it'll take you straight there. I am doing radio coverage for Stanford Athletics. So the first game for me is today, the day this is coming out, Thursday, May 11th, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time versus Oregon. That's obviously assuming that everything stays on time. So check for updates for the games that are happening before, if there are any delays, etc. But that's the plan. Single elimination. So we'll see what happens from there. But one game at a time at this point. And someone else who's here in Tucson and will obviously be at that game too is today's guest. So let's head into the interview. She is the Oregon head coach, 4-time member of the National Coaching Staff of the Year as an assistant and associate head coach at Oklahoma, and former all-conference catcher for the Sooners, Melyssa Lombardi. Coach, I'm really excited to have you.
Well, thanks for having me, Jenna.
I mean, it's been fun watching not only your team version 5 this year and your 5th season, which is hard to believe, but also your staff, and everybody, and just what you've done over the last few years. I'm pretty sure I played high school ball against your hitting coach, Sam Martyr, when she was at Calabasas. Fun fact.
I know. I think it's just such a small world. We're all connected some way, somehow.
Yeah, that was back in my pitching days too. I'm sure she hit a home run off me at some point. I'll just assume. I think it's safe. But again, it's been fun to see what you guys are all building up there in Eugene. And the thing that I've always thought is cool from your background too is that you were a catcher as a player. And for a long time in your career, you've also been that coach that works with the entire bullpen, the catchers and the pitchers. What do you think is special about catchers who are able to do that later in their careers?
I think one, it brings a different perspective. It's a lot of hard work. I mean, the mentors that I've had over the years and the research that I've had to do to be able to, be a former catcher, but then also to be able to help our pitchers and teach them different pitches and be able to help them with adjustments, if they're struggling with something. So it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's totally worth it. And it's my favorite thing to do. I love being in the bullpen with our pitchers and catchers. And this is a really good group.
Yeah, well, and I've always felt, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, or maybe even preaching to the preacher, that catchers are just underrated with what they're able to do, and not only for the team, but for the pitching staff. And so to see that translate from actually playing on the field to obviously coaching, to me, it's really important that we point those things out. But the other cool part about the Pac-12 too is that you are all female head coaches in the conference, which is pretty awesome. And a lot of the coaches are alums at their alma maters too. You know what that's like, having been at Oklahoma for a long time on the coaching staff, but now you also have your obviously team that you are leading for these last several years at Oregon. Does that sort of representation of women from our game have an impact on you all as coaches?
I think so. I think for me, I'm all about women, empowering women. I think we as women should be lifting each other up, and not tearing each other down. And so to look in our conference and see that every head coach is a woman, I think we all celebrate that, in order to play soft, it's a female sport. So to be able to see females at the head position, I think has been great for the Pac. Our athletes, there's so many things that we want to teach and guide them along the way with when it comes to softball and school. But then I just think in life, there's so many things that we want to teach them and guide them along the way as well. So I just think as females, we have that intuition. And, I know when something maybe feels a little off with our group, I want to dig in a little deeper and find out what's going on and to be able to get things right with them. And for us to really, I want our athletes to really be excited for each other. Sometimes we get so caught up in what we're doing, we're missing out with what's all around us. And so I think it's really important that we celebrate each other and really get caught up in what the other is doing.
Well, I've seen a lot of that happen at the Jane, and I have yet to be at the Jane, but it just seems like an incredible experience. It was built after my time playing in the Pac, so I'm aging myself there a little bit, but it just looks like such an awesome place to play.
I love it. Jane Sanders Stadium is the best. I think of the Sanders family, Bob Sanders, and I think of his daughter Molly Sanders, and the commitment that they made to our program. I feel like I am a professional coach that coaches at a professional stadium and coaches professional athletes. I mean, that's just what it feels like being here. And I love it. It's such a beautiful stadium. Our fans are unbelievable. I really just couldn't ask for anything more.
The fan base is incredible. And I will say the level of professionalism, I feel like from observation from the outside, it goes down to the little things. Like I tell people all the time, I remember going to Oregon and it was raining and we didn't think like, oh, there's no way we'll be able to play today. Like there's no way. And then they bring out this like fire breathing tool on the field and dry up the field. And we were able to play that day. And I want to say it was Carissa Hovingay, who I had an alum on the show, who said they called it the dragon or something like that. But I was just very impressed.
Yes, the dragon. When I first got here, people would ask me, like other coaches, like, have you seen the dragon? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And actually, right after I got here, they took apart the dragon and retired it. And then these last couple years, they have these little red dragons they're smaller than the original that they'll use. And it's this contraption that has fire flames coming out of it, and that's what they use to dry the field. So I think our field crew is great. With the weather here, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get, but usually if it's raining a little bit right now, that means it'll clear up and be great for just in time for the game. But I appreciate our grounds crew and what they do for us. They're excellent.
Unsung heroes for sure.
Yeah.
Just in softball in general. And also I'm always impressed by the fans too, because they know what they're doing. I'll see the Oregon branded rain like covers that they got on, the raincoats, all that stuff, and they're like ready to go. So I love it.
Yeah, rain or shine, they're here. They are great fans, and we're so thankful for them.
Well, speaking of branded Oregon things, obviously Oregon, just as an entire athletic department, has some of the coolest equipment and uniforms with the Nike connection and everything. Mm-hmm. There's so many options, including for the softball team. What's your favorite uniform? I have to know.
Oh gosh, it's funny because when I first got here, the all white was my absolute favorite, and then the next day they would walk out with a different one. I'm like, oh, that's my favorite, and then the next day it would be something else. I'm like, no, that's my favorite. So honestly, I love all of them. I think our uniforms are really, really cool looking. They're just so Oregon. I don't think you see anything like our uniforms. I would tell you probably my most favorite thing about our uniforms are our jersey numbers. Like I like how big the jersey numbers are on the back. So I would say that's probably my favorite part of the uniform.
Those are cool. I have always liked the font or the script that you all have. The feathers on the helmet are pretty awesome too. Yeah. Yeah, big fan of those. Definitely. Yeah, I actually have to even say, I think the all greens have grown on me, even not as somebody, green's my favorite color, so I'll throw that out there. But as someone who didn't wear green like competitively, really, I don't think ever, I am starting to be a fan of the all greens.
Yeah, no, I think all of our uniforms are really cool looking, and just having that relationship that we have with Nike, it's amazing. One thing that I always say is that just what coming on campus and the things that I've been, I don't know, just like typical things that happen every day here. It's just different. It's just different. It's like only at Oregon, is Nike on campus every other day. So there's some cool opportunities, I think, for our athletes to be student athletes here and to get their degree here and to play softball here. Unbelievable experience. But I just think the other things that they are exposed to, I just think only at Oregon. So it's pretty cool.
It is, because that translates to off the field things as well. And that's, like you said earlier in our conversation, like it's not just about teaching them and developing them as softball players, but as people too. So that's always important, especially when making a decision on where you want to go, like where you want to play, and also who you guys as a team and organization want to bring into your family as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been great. I can't say enough.
And I remember last year too, just in terms of the team culture, something that stuck with me. We chatted before one of the Pac-12 network broadcasts, and you had described version 4 at the time as prize fighters, because they know how to punch back. They know how to come back from behind. And also this element of showing up when it really matters and peaking at the right time. And you all right now too, it's like towards the end of conference, right? You've been on a roll, and it feels like that with version 5 as well. Do you think that's just a part of the culture with Oregon softball?
I think from the very beginning that we had to fight. We had some things that we had to deal with, and it was just it is what it is. Deal with it, and we did. And just watching over the years, watching our culture, and watching our leaders grow, watching our program grow. It's been really, I don't know, as a coach, to see things be put in place, and then now starting to see these guys at the end of their career. The beginning of their career, we threw them in the fire, especially these fifth year seniors that we have right now. We threw them in the fire their first year, and then now as fifth years, just the leaders that they've become on and off the field. It's been awesome to kind of sit back a little bit and let them just take over.
Well, they've taken over TikTok in the past too, like the Haley Cruzes of the
Mm-hmm.
world. How do you feel about like your team going viral? I'll talk to sort of random people and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I used to follow these softball players from Oregon that are on TikTok all the time." And I think it's kind of a interesting way for softball to get exposure.
Yeah, I think our athletes do a really good job of using their platforms. I think of using their platforms to kind of show a fun side of them through TikTok, but then to also use their platforms for various things. I think Tara McGowan does a really, really good job of that. You can see the funny side of her, but then she also uses her platform for, student athletes' mental health. I thought Haley Cruz did a good job of using her platform for various things as well.
Right. And it's so interesting for softball players specifically, but it's Mental Health Awareness Month in
Yeah.
May. It's also mayhem, right? It's like all
Mhm.
the craziness of the season feels like it comes down into this sort of stretch that we have coming up. And is that something that the team really tries to stick together on and just manage throughout it all?
I think these guys have done a really good job of, as teammates, you know each other, you love each other, but I think it's like, do you want to be surface level or do you want to dig deeper? And I think these guys have done a really good job of digging deeper with each other and really paying attention to what the other is doing. As student athletes, it's easy to get caught up in your stress in your own world and trying to get through things throughout the week. And they check in with each other a lot. And I like that. I think I think that shows up on the field. You could see that these guys really, really like to play and to play for each other. And I think that shows up on the field because of the things that they do off the field.
Hmm. Very true. I also would assume that the staff really helps with that too, because like I said in the beginning, like not just Sam Martyr, but you have Nikki and you have Alyssa Palomino Cardoza and you have Mariah Lopez on the
Mhm.
staff. Like what a good, first of all, representation of just softball nationally with like Big 12, Big 10, and of course Pac-12 experience, but just players where they can really relate. Like not only can they look up to them, but they can relate to them. And I feel like that is a really cool element of what you have going on in Eugene.
I think that's really important. When I first got here, I wanted to surround our athletes with winners, with athletes, student athletes that have played at the highest level in the toughest conferences, who've stood on the women's, College World Series stage and competed for national championships. Because our athletes do look to them. And what I love is we have such a great variety of coaches. They're all excellent, excellent coaches, and I love that. Like just as technicians, excellent. But what I love more than that is the people, the women that they are, and everybody is so so different. I mean, I think about Sam, and she always keeps things light for all of us. Like she's so serious and passionate about hitting and being able to connect with all of our athletes. But then she's so lighthearted and she's always laughing. Alyssa Palomino Cardoza, she just got done a couple years. So, and Mariah Lopez. So they're able to really relate. There's things that those two relate to with our athletes that I just don't. I'm just older. I've been done for a long time, and but they do. And so that I think they are the ones that really bridge our coaches and our players. They bridge. They keep that bridge strong. Nikki Udria Reagan, she just got done not too long ago as well. But what she does defensively with our athletes and just really teaching them on defense to just stand on their own and trust what they're doing and to take risks. I love that about her. So I just think we have such a, I don't know, just a different group of women, which is great. I feel like I have a bunch of head coaches under me, which I love because I don't have to micromanage these guys, and I don't want to micromanage. I want to trust that they know what they need to do, and they can do it. And I think they all do it really well. But I just think the most important things is that the relationships that we have built as a coaching staff, but also that we've built with our athletes as well.
Well, and that's the cool part too, is that you were in their shoes. You talked about, for example, surrounding the players with winners.
Mm-hmm.
All these people that we're talking about, including yourself, are winners, right? And know what it's like. But then also you're able to then equip them to do new things like the Pac-12 tournament. It's the first one ever
Mm-hmm.
that's coming up. And it means that nobody's done that before, technically, right? Like within the Pac-12. And it'll be a new challenge for everybody. And you all get to do that together.
Yes, I think it's great. I'm so excited about the Pac-12 tournament. The Pac-12 conference is just ridiculous. It's so difficult. Just I say it all the time, but it's just every weekend we play a super regional, and it's just crazy. But that's why we're all here, to I think in order for you to be the best, you've got to be able to play the best and compete against the best. And that's what we're doing every weekend. So I think to add a Pac-12 tournament is going to be really good for all of us.
Definitely. Your experience too in coaching conference tournaments, because for you, having done that at Oklahoma for a long time and obviously winning some national championships, where do you think that the conference tournament factors in to the whole experience leading up to postseason?
Well, I think it's funny. Like for us, I thought it was important that we have a really strong non-conference season because if we don't, we will not be prepared for the Pac. I think it's important that we play obviously a really difficult Pac 12 conference because then it allows us to get prepared for postseason. I think what the Pac-12 tournament is going to do, I think every team, whether we like it or not, is going to be prepared, for postseason. But I just think it gives you just a little bit more of a taste before you get into that regional tournament. Just a little more opportunity, So I think it's going to be really good. We're having it at the U of A for the first year, and I know they're going to be celebrating a lot of the former Pac-12 athletes as well, which they absolutely should. So I think it's going to be a really, really cool tournament.
Definitely. I'm excited for when you all get to host it eventually at the Jane
Mm-hmm.
too. That'll be really fun and really exciting. Well, I think with the Pac-12 tournament too, the exposure piece seems like it could be really helpful too. Just leading up to selection show Sunday, I know that in a day-to-day basis, it's like as a team, you're just trying to focus on the task at hand, the opponent at hand, trying to win games day to day. But in the big picture, in terms of selection show and the brackets and all of that stuff, do you see the Pac-12 tournament being able to bring some momentum to the conference?
I do. We're in the past we're finishing our season, and other conferences have already finished their season, and then you're feeling the excitement of their tournaments. And I think it gives us an opportunity to be doing the same thing and being caught up in our own tournament as well. And for the softball world, as we're seeing them compete in their tournaments, for the others to be able to see us do the same thing. So I think it'll create some really, really good exposure for us leading into postseason.
Yeah, having the championship and the semifinals on ESPN too, super exciting to be able to see that. Yeah. The other thing too is when things are going well for you all, what is it that's helping you do that? And what kinds of conversations are you having with the team when things are going well?
I think it's when things are going well, we get to kind of sit back a little bit. I think it's all the work, prior to that. The biggest thing that the conversations that we've had with this group this year is just to really to remember why you play. When we were little, we were not trying to get scholarships. We were not trying to go to all these different camps and clinics and get exposed. We were just playing the sport because we loved it. And I think sometimes as we get older, we start to lose that a little bit. So we've talked a lot about playing because we love the game. talked a lot about playing for the athletes in front of us. So our alumni who were in front of us playing for the athletes, that are next to us, and then the athletes that will come from behind us. And that's something that's been really, really important to this group.
It's such a special group of people that you're referring to too at Oregon. I'm thinking about like Janie Takeda Reed being inducted into the Pac-12 Hall of Honor, right? Earlier for the first ever class earlier this season. And then even thinking about Ali Bunker then getting drafted by the WPF. I mean, what do those kinds of things do for your program?
I think it just it shows all the hard work, like on game day, everybody gets to see you on game day, but they're not seeing what you're doing, before game day. And I just think about Janie and how hard she's worked, in her career, academically, but then also just as an athlete, and all the time that she's put in. And then to be able to get that honor, what an unbelievable honor, for her to play for Team USA, what an unbelievable honor. And, she comes back to Eugene, and our athletes get to meet her and talk with her and befriend her. And, and there's this sisterhood that is created, and they didn't even play together. So I think it's important. I love when our alumni come to Eugene, or we're on the road and we get to see them. I'm excited to see them. And then the first thing I want to do is just put them right in front of our team and get them to talk with our team. And what's really cool is our team is always like, tell us what you guys did when you were here. Like, what were things that you like? They're so intrigued by what did what did our alumni do when they were here? What were little things, as a team? They love it. So they're always, I love when our alumni come back.
Yeah. I get that. The stories are fun because I feel like I remember when I was one of the players asking those questions, and then now being on the other side, being an alum, but also hearing some of the older alums tell their stories when it was different from when I played, right? And it's just this like chain where all the links continue, and it's a really cool thing and hard to explain unless you've actually experienced it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important. Our athletes should know the women who paved the road, and that are in front of them. They need to know. And so any chance we can get, I'm all for it.
100%. Well, I keep talking to you all day long, but I know that we only have a few more minutes together. So with that said, to wrap up, I play a little game with everybody that comes on the show. It's really easy. It's called Safe or Out. And basically, I'll bring up a softball topic. If you like it or you agree with it, you'll call it safe. If you don't, then you'll call it out.
Okay.
Okay. So it's easy, I swear.
Okay.
You get to be the umpire for once. So there you go.
Okay.
So the first one is the safety bag at first base. Safe or out? Safe. I feel like a lot of coaches would agree with you, or at least that's the impression I get.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it eventually across the board end up having it.
Yeah, I have seen a couple of, unintentional, but just like tussles at first base. Like it just happens right in our game. So it's helpful to have that. Okay. That was the first one. Second one is NIL. Safe or out? Safe. You answered that pretty quickly. Not some people do, but some people also like kind of mull over it for a while, but you seem confident. Yeah. I just think, our athletes, I think the platforms that they have while they're in college and they have opportunity for those platforms, and I'm all for it. And it's funny because I'm kind of old school. So at first when this all came about, I was kind of thinking the other way, but then just the more that I've seen it, I think our, athletes, if they have an opportunity, good for them. Right. Makes sense. All right. The last one is bat flips. Safe or out? I'd say out. I'm just old school. To me, you do it every day. You don't need a bat flip. But then, like I said, I'm old school where my son is a high school baseball player and he's like, oh, that bat flip was like the best I've ever seen. So who knows? Are you okay with general celebration, like a fist pump or? Oh, for sure. I love the emotion of the game. I'm all for it. For it. Yeah, we just don't need to chuck. I love it. I love the emotion. I feel like you're seeing more emotion. Lots of times you get into postseason and,
your season is on the line. So you see more emotion. But I feel like as our sport every year, the emotion is there from the first game to the last. So I love it. I love it.
Yeah. The big moments for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Coach. This was awesome. I'm super excited to see you all in the tournament as well. I'll be there in Tucson, so hopefully I can come say hi in person.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to see you.
Crazy time of year to talk with Missy because, they're in mission mode. And it's not that they weren't already. Obviously they were, but this is a new season. So the mission has evolved a little bit. And Oregon is one of several Pac-12 teams that has had an upward trajectory over the last few years. And I'm just excited that I got to chat with her during version 5. So with that, let's transition to the foul tip of the week. This week's foul tip is about being a thermostat and not a thermometer. You're probably like, what does that mean? Well, I heard this concept at Stanford Senior Day this past weekend. I mentioned I went. Coach Allister was describing one of the seniors, Tatum Boyd, and said that between a thermometer and a thermostat, she is definitely the latter. Well, what does that mean? Thermometers tell you what the temperature is, right? But thermostats let you pick the temperature you want, regulate it, manage it, make it get to where you want it to go. And on some of the pre-broadcast calls that I had this year with Coach Allister, she has referred to Tatum as the heartbeat of the team. And this is part of the reason, because players who can read the situation and push not just themselves, but their teammates toward their shared goal, they're invaluable. And one of the harder things for me personally, honestly, is to know when to push forward, when to pull back, and maybe when to do nothing. Because my default is just like crank it up. But sometimes what's going to get you closer to that goal or wherever it is you're trying to go is to turn it down or even turn it off. So to be able to do that with a group and know what the team needs and your teammates need, that's a specific skill within leadership. And this might be a familiar concept to people, but the analogy specifically was new to me and I loved it. And I feel like it's more applicable than ever during tournament season, like when things are on the line, pressure's super high. So it's one of those things where it's like, let's not just see what happens like a thermometer, but let's set the goals and move toward them like a thermostat. So that's it. Be a thermostat. That's the foul tip of the week. You've been listening to Bleav in Softball, part of Bleav Network and presented by BetOnline. The show is available anywhere you get your podcasts, wherever you listen, including Bleav.com and YouTube too. Subscribe to the show, rate the show, and if you liked it, write a review. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bleav in Softball. That's BLEAV. You can reach out to me personally on Twitter at Jenna Becerra01 and Instagram at Jenna Becerra as well. As always, thank you for tuning in and catch you soon.